Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name's Erica, and today I have my January mid-month wrap-up. So in January, I've already read 10 books, and we're on the 16th day of the month. So that's crazy for me. That's way more books than I've ever read in a month. I typically average about 10 books a month, and we're halfway through it, and I've already hit that. So I'm really proud of myself, and I'm just excited to share with you all the books that I have read so far. I started off the month really strong, and then we've kind of gone downhill a little bit, but that's okay. Let's talk about the books. So the first book I read this month is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it so much. There are a few YouTubers here that are doing a read-along for this, and I've just had so much fun participating in that, and it's been a blast. This follows Jude, and her twin sister get taken to the fairy world when they're very young, along with their older sister, who they find out is half fae. And their mom was once married to their older sister's dad, and he comes and kills their parents and takes them to the fairy world. That happens right in the beginning of the book. It's not a spoiler. So then we follow Jude, and she is trying to navigate being a mortal in this fairy world. Because mortals are looked down on by the fairies, Jude has always been kind of bullied by them, and she just wants to feel like she fits in more. We have Cardan, who is the prince of Elfam, and he is the one that is doing a lot of the bullying for Jude. And a lot goes down in this book. It's a lot to try to explain, but if you have not read this series, it is so fun. And it's a YA series, but it is just amazing in my opinion, and there's lots of surprises along the way and things that happen. And I really felt like this book, every little thing that was in this book was important in the end, and we saw it either circle back at the ending or every little thing was intentional. And the writing style feels very much like a fairy tale, but it's also beautiful and slightly haunting. And I just really enjoyed this first book so much, and I'm so happy that I finally got to it. After that, I read The Lost Sisters, which is a novella in the Folk of the Air series, which is what The Cruel Prince is from. And this was just like a 50-page novella, and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a good addition to the series. We got to see some of Taryn's point of view, which I really liked. That's Jude's twin sister, and she does some stuff throughout the first book, so it was nice to get like her point of view from it, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And yeah, I just thought it was a really good addition to the series, and I'm glad I didn't skip it. After that, I went right into The Wicked King, and this is the second book in the Folk of the Air series, and I also gave this one 5 stars. This one was my favorite of the series, and this just takes off right from the ending of Cruel Prince, and I just loved following Jude and her character arc through this. Also, a little bit of romance develops in this one, so obviously I loved that, and I just never felt like I could trust any of the characters, and I never knew what was coming. And they're fairies, you can't trust them. So, I don't know. I just thought it was really great. I annotated the crap out of it. After that, I wanted to take a little bit of a break from all of the fantasy I was reading, and I read Runaway Road by Devney Perry. So this is a read-along that's part of a read-along that's happening on YouTube, and I wanted to participate. So I read the first book. It's really short, like 250 pages. This is following our heroine who, she's getting a divorce because her husband cheated on her. She came from like nothing, and she lived in a junkyard with a bunch of other kids, and they just lived there and made ends meet, well, however they could, but she and another kid would sleep in the back of this old car. So she, while she's married to her husband still, gets this car sent to her, and she restores it. And so when her husband cheats on her, she gets a divorce, and she has a lot of money now, and she's never had money before that, so she can go do whatever she wants. So she takes this car that she restored, and she decides she's going to drive it across the country to go see her friend Carson, which is the guy that she used to sleep in the car with. So she goes along, and she ends up popping a tire or something like that. She ends up needing to get towed. So the tow guy comes and tows her car and ends up fixing it for her. But while that's happening, she's stuck in this small town for a few days, and then it ends up being a little bit longer than that. But so it's her romance with the guy that towed her car. And I thought that it was really sweet. I loved all the small town vibes. My complaints with it is just that it's a very short book, so it felt very insta-love, and it was very insta-love. It was over the span of about 2 weeks. And it just felt a little much for me, and I didn't necessarily connect with either of the characters that much. So yeah, it wasn't anything that blew me away, and it was a really short, quick read. After that, I did try to read Wild Highway, and I only made it like 2 chapters in before I decided to just give up on the series. I don't think it's going to be a series for me. There are a lot of other books that I want to read more than that, and I kind of knew going into these books that they might not be for me, and that's okay. I'm just glad I gave them a try, and now I can read some other things that I think that I would enjoy more. So after that, I finished Kiss the Sky by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the first book in the Calloway sisters, but it's like the 4th book if you read the Calloway and Addicted series together. This was the next book that I had to read for that, and this follows Rose and Connor. I gave this book 4 stars. So starting at the beginning of this book, Rose and Connor are already together, but I think that Rose feels like their relationship isn't that solid, and Connor's kind of known for using people to get ahead in life, so I feel like she kind of thinks that's what he's doing to her, and Connor even says that he's never loved anybody and he never will love anybody. And then Rose is a virgin, and she is just very confident and strong in her life, but she feels not so confident when it comes to her sexual experiences that she's had and lack of sexual experience that she's had. So they've never been intimate with each other. So we start off the book with Rose starting a reality TV show to try to get her family's image back on track and get some sales for her clothing line that she has. So it's forced proximity. Rose and Connor are living together with Lillian Lowe and Daisy and Reich, and also the producer from their show. And I thought that was a really interesting aspect of this book, and I really, really enjoyed that aspect. It was also nice to see Daisy and Reich, because I think they're going to be my favorite couple of the whole series. Lily and Lo were there too, just being in their normal, into each other's selves. So it was a fun time, but it was only a 4-star read for me, which I was really hoping it would be a 5-star read, just because I feel like this book is really hyped. This book and Hot House Flower. So I just felt a little bit like I was missing something. Like, I don't see what everyone else sees about this book being so amazing. I feel like it didn't have that much like angst or tension because they're already together in the start of the book. And yeah, I liked it okay, and I'm glad I read it, and I am having fun with the series, but it's not a series that I'm obsessed with, and I feel sad about that because I feel like so many people are obsessed with this series. But I'm hopeful that Hot House Flower will be my 5-star read from this series. So yeah, it was just a 4-star read for me, which is still a really, really awesome rating. Next, I read Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. So this follows 2 comedians. So we have our female comedian who is trying to make a name for herself, and then we have our male comedian, and he's kind of taken a back seat from comedy since he's become a single dad, but he is friends and the manager to our heroine. Her name is Farley, I think. And so they have this really great friendship, but also a really good like professional relationship. And Farley is approached by 2 other female comedians who want to go on tour and do like a comedy special and whatnot. And Farley is super excited about this because she's been trying to advance her career. They say in order to get publicity that she should fake date somebody, so they come up with the idea to fake date her manager, our hero. So he's really reluctant about this because he doesn't want to ruin their friendship, but he's always kind of had a thing for her, and Farley has too, but they've just never shared it with each other. So they enter into this kind of fake dating relationship, and it was cute. I enjoyed it a lot. Our hero has a daughter who is deaf, and Farley knows ASL, so that was a really good aspect that I liked thrown in. It was really sweet, and I think their relationship growth was very well done and cute, and there's a lot of cute moments between them. I would just say this read very rom-com, which isn't my thing, and obviously I knew that it would be like that going in, but I wanted to give it a shot, and I'm glad that I did. I have never read a book with comedians as the main characters of it, so I'm happy that I gave this one a shot. Obviously, everyone has a different sense of humor, so something I find funny, you might not find funny, and something you find funny, I might not find funny. And for me, the comedy in this, most of the time didn't work. There were a few things that I thought were funny, but most of the time, the comedy had me a little bit cringing, so it really took me out of the story. And I feel like to write a book about comedians, like, it's kind of hard because you have to be funny, and same with rom-coms. Like, if the comedy doesn't work for you, then the book probably won't work for you. It took me out of the story every single time that there's a joke or something that I was like, that really just didn't work or really didn't find funny. And that could just be me. I do have a really dry sense of humor, and a lot of things that a lot of people find funny, I don't find funny. And like I said, vice versa. A lot of things I think are funny and dry and sarcastic, people don't find funny, and that's okay. But I still thought the story overall was really, really cute. It was just those moments that really took me out of the story. And also, I think this was because I was listening to it on audio mostly, but I had a hard time following the past and present timelines that were told. It flashes back between the two, and I had to keep like checking what timeline we were in because I kept getting confused on that. So that also kind of took me out of the story. But overall, I think this was good. And if you are someone who really likes rom-coms, I think that you would really enjoy this book. Next, we have a book that I really wanted to try. So that is Untouchable by Sam Mariano. And I was really unsure going into it how I'd feel about this book. And overall, I ended up giving it 2 stars. I know that a lot of people really, really love this book, and I'm so glad that they do. It just didn't work for me personally. And there were some parts of it that I really, really loved, but I just couldn't get past other parts of it. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. After those books, I decided to jump back into the Folk of the Air series, and I read The Queen of Nothing. So this was my least favorite book of the series, but I still ended up giving it 4 stars. The Wicked King left off on a pretty crazy cliffhanger, so I was excited to jump in and see where we would go. So I think that the beginning of this book started pretty strong, but the conclusion was kind of weak in my opinion. And it stinks that for a really, really great trilogy, the conclusion was the weakest part in my opinion. But overall, I still really, really love this series, and I'm happy overall with the way it wrapped up. It was more so the pacing of how it wrapped up and certain things. I feel like we could have gotten to the conclusion in a better way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love this series overall so much. Next, I read How the King of Elfam Learned to Hate Stories, and this is a novella at the end of the Folk of the Air series, and it's like 150 pages, and it's just short like chapters and stories about Carden and his life. And I really, really enjoyed some of the stories, and then other stories I didn't really care about. So I ended up giving it 3 stars, but I think it was a really good addition overall, especially if you want more Carden and you want to know more about his backstory and his life and why he was the way he was. I think this would be a really good thing to check out. So the last book I have to talk about is the 3rd book in the Vampire Academy, and that is Shadow Kiss. So this is also for a read-along that's happening on YouTube. The first 3 books will be on a live show at the end of the month, and that's with Sam Reads a Little and a few other YouTubers. But yeah, so this is the 3rd book, and so far it's my least favorite in this series. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It picks up like right where we left off before, but I feel like the first like 75%, maybe even more, like nothing really happened. We were just kind of hanging out. And then we were finding out a few things about Rose and like what she's going through. And that was interesting and good, but then like not a lot was really happening. And then the last like 25, maybe even less % of the book, so much happened and like so much was jammed into like the last little chunk of this book that the pacing just felt weird and a little bit jarring. So yeah, I would say that was my complaint about this book. I do love these characters and I love this world, and I'm just really having fun with the series though, so I don't mind just kind of hanging out and chilling with the characters. But yeah, the pacing was very strange in this one, and it's also quite a bit longer than the first 2 by at least like 100 pages, I think. So for the pacing to be so much slower just felt weird compared to the other 2 books because they felt much more fast-paced and they're also shorter. So that's all for my January mid-month wrap-up. I can't wait to come to you at the end of January and talk to you about the rest of the books that I'm going to read throughout the month. I have like 4 more books on my TBR, and then I'm done with my January TBR, so who knows what I'll get to and what I'll pick up. It's going to be a surprise for us both. But yeah, that's it for me, and hopefully the rest of my January will be a little bit better in terms of star ratings. But I will check in with you at the end of the month. So talk to you later. Bye.